I'm going to say something blasphemous here. I think that swimming is a better sport than American football. Damn, I said it. Please don't chase me with pitchforks or torches or anything like that because I'm just a college student trying to save everyone's brains from more homework. I'm here to outline what makes football so appealing and nice to watch, and then go into detail about why I think swimming is a better sport overall. Now, let's start with why football is so popular to watch on TV. Football has been the most popular sport in America for a while now, originally starting off as a cross between soccer and rugby. It has now evolved into a sports business worth billions of dollars each year. As reported in November 6, 2019 article written by Sam Richmond and published by the NCAA, the first American football game was, as we conceptualize it today, took place on November 2, 1869 in Brunswick, New Jersey. This means that football, by the end of 2020, will be approximately 151 years old as an official sport. That's around 812 months, give or take a few weeks, of camaraderie, entertainment, concussions, and spirit. Swimming, however, as a formal organized sport, followed soon after, the first Olympic competition being held in 1896, approximately 27 years after the first football game. Now, what is so special about football that has kept in popular circulation for 15 decades? In short, football is to retain. After all, why else is the most popular sport on American television? It's also been pointed out that it develops sportsmanship and camaraderie among team members. There's also an audience investment when the fans get attached to a certain player. This is epitomized by fantasy football. However, despite its great popularity, football is not a safe sport, especially for the youth of our country. Being a full-body tackle sport, American football has an unsurprising number of injuries each game, ranging from relatively common sprains, ligament tears, and fractures. Marcus Rosemary Jackson's broken leg touchdown last month in the Georgia-Florida game is an example. And then there are the alarming concussions. One must wonder whether or not it is safe for any youth to play, considering that the bodies and brains of people under 20 are still heavily in development, and thus are more susceptible to lasting damage. Possibly one of the most hotly debated deficits in football is the risk of concussions and how that has led to CTE, short for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and it's been developed in untold players. As reported in a 2014 article written by A.C. McKee, CTE is a neurodegenerative disease that is one of the most dangerous aspects of football. The main sources I read state that it is caused mostly by concussions and particularly brutal accidents that injure the head. CTE damages the brain, makes much more likely to develop depression, suicidal thoughts and behaviors, uncontrollable compulsions, and it damages anger management. One must wonder how that affects family life and how much its symptoms are exacerbated when it develops in young brains. Much focus is placed on concussion as the cause of brain injuries in CTE, but perhaps more concerning is that chronic brain degeneration can be caused by something else that's more insidious and much harder to prevent. It's called RHIE, repetitive head impact exposure, as presented in a scholarly article published in November 2, 2020 by the AN Biomed Engineering and written by Mihalik J.P. et al. RHIE is when there's frequent bumping of the head, which causes both skull microfractures and minute brain tissue bruising that builds up over time, and that is more likely the true cause that leads to CTE, collegiate, and professional athletes. Now, back in my parents' days, kids, even elementary, can play tackle football. Nowadays, you have to be at least in high school before you can move from flag football to tackle football. This is a result of the scandals associated with the cover-up of risks and concussions in CTE. I have to question whether or not anyone under the age of 18 should play tackle football, because even then their brains are still developing. Now, increasing the minimum age for tackle football and increasing the screening for brain injuries have come out of Little League, NCAA, and NFL's attempts to save their sport. There are many resources to review this history. One example that's short is from the Journal of State Legislature, which are 2011 articles that discusses with NFL Representative Roger Goodell the legal and cultural changes being implemented within the NFL. So far, I paint a pretty scary picture now of the health risks of football. I'd like to argue that swimming, while at times monotonous, is a safer and more well-rounded sport to play. I'm not just saying this because I am a swimmer. I'm also backing up this argument with the facts and data about swimming, as well as my personal experience. Allow me to explain why swimming, how swimming has low injury risks, provides superior body sculpting, and still allows both individual skill and team building opportunities. Football, as previously stated, has a high number of injuries. By contrast, in swimming, the arch of force that can happen is if someone is disabled by a 6% pool, or if a swimmer jumps off a high diving angle, or in rare cases, if a high-level athlete gets an injury to their rotor cuff muscles, like some baseball pitchers. But that's rare. Swimming also gives exercise to more parts of your body than football traditionally does, because it makes you use more parts of your body at the same time: arms, core, neck, legs, etc. As nice to summarize for the lay audience, Mark Hyde, in his 2017 Times article, explains how to fine-tune your strokes, and as a result, get more muscle. Another strong point about swimming that's pointed out in the Hyde article, and is supported by a 2015 article by A. Conti, is how swimming alleviates gravity pressure on the body. Since the body is supported in the water, its own weight isn't putting pressure on joints and bones. This is superb for people who have developed arthritis, and it works well in keeping our backs straight during swimming, like this. Whereas during activities such as running, cycling, or football, we might be bending our backs slightly forward because of gravity. It also means less wear and tear in the joints of our young athletes, and that means that their age-related arthritis won't be triggered to start as early, like footballers, cheerleaders, runners, gymnasts, etc. Swimming also has elements of team sports where we practice and support each other, we train against each other, and we can compete in relay events that require strategy. However, unlike football, individual technique is truly the key to faster swimming and winning. In swimming, it's important to develop personal strategies in order to fine-tune your arm placement, your breathing, the way you kick your legs, and how you streamline into a lane to minimize drag and force. Swimming is an interesting contrast and merging of the benefits of individual versus team sports. And even though it is safer, it also has some of its own cons. The biggest drawback is probably that it's not observing to watch as football. In all honesty, swimming can be pretty tedious as you wait between events, and it doesn't make it too swift to spectate. Also, speaking of personal experience again, grandparents typically have no idea what's going on if they weren't swimmers, and the pool's always a reek of chlorine. Since swimming is more or less based on technique, it requires almost perfect concentration on the swimmer's part to keep up that technique. And yet a whole team can get bogged down by bad technique if they start drilling with poor style. In football, it's more team dependent, and that can help make up for a single person's mistake. In swimming, all your mistakes are laid bare, and you cannot in any way share the buck. I still say that swimming is a safer sport because of its lower injury rate and depends on individual style. And although not particularly exciting to watch, it is something that can be just as entertaining if you understand what is happening. I imagine football is boring to those who don't understand the game as well. In conclusion, based on my data, I state that in a metaphorical nutshell, swimming, while sometimes more boring than football, provides a wider range of health benefits and carries less inherent risks and safety concerns than what football has. I present historical facts, data, news reports, and scholarly reports on why swimming is a safer sport than football, even if it does have a few minor downsides. I hope that I convinced all of you, my audience, of my argument, and I really hope that you're not tracking me down to my house and chasing me with pitchforks and torches. Well, if you do, please wear masks. How'd I do?